Our first story, Salon Media in talks for a $5 million fire sale in a last-ditch effort. You may be wondering, what is Salon.com? Maybe you know. But Salon is considered to be one of the wokest of media outlets, putting out such great hits like, quote, I don't even think I can read this quote. They wrote an article, this is Salon.com in 2015, saying that white men must be stopped. The very future of mankind depends on it. Incredible. They also have a segment, another article called What It Really Means to Be Woke. Radical activism is spiritual as well as political. And it explains what wokeness is. So, actually, this looks like a repost from Alternet, which is also an activist site. But now it would seem that we have another story about woke media going broke. Now, Salon has been woke as long as I've known about it. And I can't say I'm surprised. But here's the thing. Of all of the media companies we've seen take a big hit, most of them that have sold have retained their staff, and they've literally sold, right? So let's do this. Mike.com sold for $5 million. I believe Mashable may have sold, but Mike.com, which was once valued very, very, I think $100 million or something, sells for $5 million. They actually sold for $5 million. Now, you see this story about Salon from the New York Post. It seems, in reality, the deal will be worth $5 million, but it's only going to be a $500,000 cash transaction. Oh my God! I seriously, to go from being this like woke, profitable venture to selling for $500K in cash. Now, the deal is worth $5 million. That means they're going to sell it, and they're hoping that eventually they're going to do, let me read the story, because basically, eventually they pay off $5 million with no guarantee the business survives. So this is a $500,000 cash. This is the lowest deal I've read about. This is bad news for the woke fungible journalists of New York. From the New York Post reads, Salon Media Group, a one-time digital darling, has fallen on hard times. It lost its CEO of the past 3 years last week and appears to be on the brink of a deal to sell itself for a fire sale price of $5 million. Oh boy, just wait. It gets worse. The struggling company said in a Securities and Exchange Commission filing on May 8th that it reached a deal to sell itself to a company called Salon.com LLC. So this is interesting. What is Salon.com LLC? It sounds like someone set up a venture to offload the site. So this may be some kind of transfer scheme, right? If they're selling it to a new venture or a venture named after it. But let's read. The filing contained no further info on the mystery buyer or buyers, but said the deal would only require a $550,000 payment at closing. Oh my God. You want to talk about Mike.com's $5 million sale being bad? Let's talk about the $550,000 due at closing for Salon.com. It said $100,000 would go to an escrow account, and $500,000 was already paid as a deposit. The remaining $3.85 million would be a promissory note payable in 2 installments over 2 years. Here's the thing. Check this out. Even with those favorable terms, Salon issued a dire warning in the filing. There can be no guarantee that the asset sale will be completed, and if not completed, we may have to file for bankruptcy and liquidation. What they're basically saying is, it's a deal that is potentially worth $5 million with a caveat that $3.85 million might just never come to existence. This is one of the brokest I have ever seen, one of these media companies. So look, I'm usually not one to gloat and partake in a dance of Schadenfreude. Glad that these weird woke fringe companies are doing poorly. I mean, these are people's jobs, so I can definitely respect that people are going to be out of work. They're going to be struggling, but I have to point out a sort of reap what you sow attitude. Listen, for years, these companies knew they were chasing after an algorithm, writing the most ridiculous and absurd nonsense. Like, come on, man. Seriously, look at this story. Okay, so this is also from Alternet. Salon.com. So I think it's fair to point out the white men must be stopped story originated on Alternet, but it's republished on Salon. So you can see the kind of things that Salon promotes. Salon also had some pro-child abuse. The best I can say it, like I don't want to say certain words, you know, but they had some pretty controversial articles that were trying to normalize some pretty bad behavior that they eventually took down. That's my understanding. But they had this article, "White Men Must Be Stopped," and why would you write this? They say for 500 years. They've exploited their fellow man and plundered the planet. It's time they reigned themselves. Who do you think you're selling content to? So here's the challenge. You make a media company. What we're seeing now is at the launch of these companies, they're trying to target a market. Initially, media was, only a handful of companies, so they tried to target everybody. That meant the content had to be rather balanced if you wanted a mainstream audience. But now the internet has allowed for a website for literally anything. I kid you not. One of the things I've brought up is there was once, until Facebook deranked all of these news sites, there was a website in the global top 500 websites dedicated to nothing but police brutality videos. That's going to screw people up. And it did. The amount of people seeing just endless videos. Listen, there's something I call the scaling problem. Let me put it this way. Let's say Apple releases 100 iPhones and 1% break. No one cares. You'll have 100 celebrities all going, this iPhone's great, and then one celebrity says mine broke, and people shrug, oh, whatever, it's one phone. Let's say they release 100 million phones and 1% break. Now you've got 1 million blog posts of people saying my phone broke, and everyone goes, whoa, what is going on? 1 million broken phones, same margin of error. So we can look at what these websites do. You have more and more police officers. As the economy expands, as our population grows, you end up with more people and hence more police. Let's say 1% of cops do something wrong. Should we hold them accountable? 100%. Should we get rid of the corrupt police? Absolutely. But what happens when you take the 1 million videos and put them online and say we have a serious problem? If it was one cop out of 100, no one would have cared. But because it's 1 million out of 100 million, people all of a sudden care. Those aren't real numbers. I'm just speaking hypothetically. But these websites can capitalize on this because you only need so much content to push this narrative forward. This screws people up really, really bad. But here's the thing. Eventually, some people get tired of it, right? I used to track this stuff. I used to make videos. I did a documentary on Ferguson where we talked about it's called Going on Tour. When the police, it's a really I don't want to get into all the complicated issues of Ferguson, but suffice to say, it is very, very systemically racist in St. Louis County due to the structures that exist, right? That negatively impact certain communities. It's part of history. It needs to be rectified. And so I've tracked this stuff, but I can see and understand math. Eventually, Facebook says, we really can't have, this is radicalizing people. And you want to talk about media radicalizing people, this is it. Well, eventually, nobody wants to read about white men must be stopped, Salon. And now they're in a fire sale, $500,000 for this company. Wow. That's ridiculously low. Ridiculously low. Let's read a little bit more of the article here over at the New York Post. CEO Jordan Hoffner, a one-time NBC and YouTube executive, resigned suddenly on May 3rd, according to the filing. He remains a company director but could not be reached for comment. The SEC is also threatening to delist the penny stock for failure to file financial disclosure documents for more than a year. Whoa! Not only are they in fire sale mode for trash rates, they're going to get delisted. The company said it expected to be in compliance with SEC filing rules by June 7th, but acknowledged that it was way past the 15-day deadline the SEC had imposed. So they say Richard McWilliams, a managing partner of Vista Capital Advisors and the chairman of the board of Salon Media, was named acting CEO. Trevor Calhoun, another board member and a partner at Humulus Holdings Capital Management, was appointed acting CFO, replacing some people we don't care about. Replacing Elizabeth Hambrecht, who resigned back in October. I don't want to be a dick. Neither McWilliams nor Calhoun returned calls seeking comment. The left-leaning website was launched in San Francisco in 1995, staffed largely by refugees from a newspaper strike at the San Francisco Examiner. It went public in June 1999, valued at $107 million, but has lost money ever since. For years, John Warnock, co-founder of Adobe Systems, and William Hambrecht, a venture capitalist, the father of the former CFO, who was involved in the IPOs of Google, Amazon, Apple, and Adobe Systems, injected cash to offset mounting losses. Calls and emails to Hoffner, McWilliams, and Calhoun were not returned. Let me give you some advice. You get woke. you go broke. Now, that's not really true, right? You know, Jordan Peele certainly hasn't gotten broke. He's actually gotten rich. Get woke, go rich, Jordan Peele. People like to say get woke, go broke. It's not a law, right? It's not like it's guaranteed to happen, but it does happen sometimes. And I do think people pull out the story and say, this proves it. No. I think get woke, go broke is just a funny saying when you see these stories kind of happen. But the truth is Salon has always been woke, and they've always chased after this far left narrative. That's what they are. Eventually, people don't want to hear it anymore, right? Because let's put it another way. If BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Vox, Vice, Mike, the list goes on, Salon, all are putting out AJ Plus, they're all putting out the same trash. Why would anybody want to see the same thing over? It's mind-numbing, right? If everyone posts the same police brutality video, well, the market's saturated, and it can't hold itself up. So here's what's happening. You may have seen my video on my main channel yesterday, or for those that are listening on the podcast, you probably didn't see this. But we're going to be, we're hiring, we're expanding, we're getting a space just north of New York in Connecticut. And we're going to grow slowly and organically, and we're not going to rely on chasing formulaic algorithms. One of the biggest mistakes these companies make is, we saw that story from Mike.com where it's the formula. X celebrity says X about Y. Right, like that's an oversimplification of what they were doing. What the formulas really were was like X is outraged over, racist Y. They were specifically targeting identitarianism, identity politics. And when you do that, you run yourself off a cliff because that's not a sustainable business. What we're actually looking at in terms of expanding Subverse is going to be more like physical events. Come and buy a ticket. It's a big theater. We're going to do a live show. We're going to do talks. And we're going to do paywalled content like subscription content. The goal is not to rely on algorithms and crossing our fingers, but to produce a real product, like something you can actually hold and then selling the product. What these companies do now, and admittedly what I do on YouTube, is rely on the algorithm to promote the content so that I can sell ad revenue that Google is listing. We'll do some of that. But we want to make sure we avoid the pitfalls of all these companies and create a backbone that is longer lasting, which is going to be subscription model. It's going to be if you are, we're still working out the details, but imagine if you are like a paying member at $10 a month or whatever for our content, and we do a physical event, you get like preferred access or whatever, or you can buy a physical ticket. We're talking about ideas like this where we can figure out how to turn this into a real business. And one of the things I've always really wanted to do is run multiple hacker spaces. If you don't know what that is, a hacker space is it's where hackers hang out. And this doesn't mean computer hackers. Some of them are hardware hackers. Some are musicians and artists. It's just a creative space. And so I'm looking at, in the future, can we set up multiple spaces that help run a media company, but also are for the community to come in, hang out, and see the real process. Imagine this. Imagine you were a member of Salon.com. And that meant you could actually come into the newsroom and hang out. Then you could actually talk to the people who are writing, like, hey, why did you write this? That's real transparency. But we'll get to that point. So anyway, the other little tidbit I'm gonna sign off on is, for now, so I have a podcast. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, etc. And for the longest time, it has just been my main channel content. From now on, it's going to be an hour every day from the videos on my second channel. So if you're listening on the podcast, you already get this. But now I'm going to have a daily hour-long podcast, and it's going to be just sometimes big news, sometimes stories I just care about for the most part. And then I don't know what's going to happen with my main channel, but I think it's going to I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm just going to, it's just what it is. We'll figure it out as we go. I'm probably going to use it to document as we expand and grow into Subverse. But check it out, the video on my main channel, youtube.com/timcast, because there's information. We do a tour of the space and more information to come. The next segment, for those listening, will be up in about a few seconds, but for the rest of you, it'll be at 1 p.m., youtube.com/timcastnews, this channel, and I will see you then.